What's up guys? This is it. We're at the end. Welcome to the fourth and final chapter in my rewrite for Star Wars Episode 8 The Last Jedi. If you haven't seen parts 1, 2, and 3 yet, then you should probably check those out before watching this video. But if you don't have that kind of time, here's a brief recap. If you don't need the recap, you can skip to this time in the video. Fair warning though, for timing purposes, I didn't include all of the necessary little details in this recap because it would just take too long to recount all of it. So if you get a little confused throughout this video, just go ahead and watch parts 1 through 3 and you can get the full story. With his father dead and his crewmates off helping Qi'ra train, Sam Solo decides to stick with General Leia and help his mom out by fighting for the Resistance as the commander of an X-Wing squadron. Leia is later killed in one of the First Order's attacks, and she is succeeded by Admiral Ackbar. Sam tries to mutiny against Admiral Ackbar because he thinks Ackbar is an ineffective leader, but he fails, and Ackbar sacrifices himself to buy the Resistance enough time to escape to their base on the crystal planet of Christophsis. FN-2187 is a loyal stormtrooper in the First Order who leads a team of Special Force troops known as Titan Squad. FN's eyes are open to the First Order's true colors when he uncovers a dirty secret. All of the stormtroopers in the First Order were babies who had been kidnapped by the First Order and were raised to believe that the Rebel Alliance had been responsible for all of the chaos and evil in the galaxy. Now, FN-2187 and Titan Squad lead an uprising of stormtroopers against Captain Phasma and the senior officers of the First Order, but they are pushed back and forced to retreat to the planet Christophsis, where they hope to meet up with the Resistance and forge an alliance with the Freedom Fighters. Qi'ra begins training in the ways of the Jedi under Luke Skywalker and learns from the legendary Jedi Master that she is the bastard daughter of Han Solo, thus making her the half-sister of Kylo Ren and Sam. Qi'ra abandons her training to try to convert her brother Kylo back to the light side, but her plans go up in smoke when Kylo Ren chooses to remain with the dark side, even after helping Qi'ra destroy his master and the rest of the Knights of Ren. Qi'ra and Kylo Ren engage in another duel, and this time, Kylo beats her. He gives Qi'ra some severe burns on her back and arm, and she barely manages to escape with her life thanks to Luke coming to her rescue at the last second. Qi'ra and Luke are on their way to Christophsis to help give the Resistance their support, while Kylo Ren assumes command of the First Order and flies after the Jedi, hoping to crush the champions of the light side once and for all. Now, on with the show. Act 4. So pretty much everything that happens on Crait in the original movie will take place here, except I'm swapping out Crait for Christophsis. I'm doing this because Crait is a very, very cheap ripoff of the planet Hoth. It's so obvious. Just look at these pictures. They're the same exact planet both visually and structurally, except Crait has some red in its color scheme. So I thought it'd be cool to spice up the roster of the planets in the Skywalker saga and throw in a landscape that we haven't seen yet on the big screen. A crystal planet seems like a good enough fit, so I went with Christophsis. So far in the Star Wars franchise, we've gotten ice planets, forest planets, desert planets, jungle planets, swamp planets, lava planets, and even city planets. Let's throw in something that hasn't been done before, like a crystal planet. And what's cool is that we can still keep Episode 8's original white and red color palette by having the crystals surrounding the Resistance base all be ruby red. Anyways, with Admiral Ackbar gone, Sam quickly rallies everyone to defend the Resistance base. Sam will ask Resistance High Command how Admiral Ackbar had been able to deal so much damage to the enemy fleet with his lightspeed maneuver, and they reveal that an attack of such magnitude was only possible thanks to the experimental shields that the Raddus was equipped with. They paid a heavy price sacrificing their one and only prototype for those shields, but it was well worth it, since it ensured the survival of the Resistance. A First Order shuttle suddenly comes into view, being pursued by a couple of TIE fighters. The shuttle slides into the base's hangar right as the blast doors close, and the Resistance begin unloading everything that they have upon the enemy shuttle. But DJ waves his hat into the air and calls for a ceasefire. The Resistance recognizes one of its own, and DJ quickly explains that he brought with him a regiment of First Order defectors who could potentially help them out. At first, Sam ignores the stormtroopers and pawns them over to Beaumont while he prepares for a ground assault against the battering ram cannon. The only problem is that it's guarded by a platoon of walkers, and they're being led by an extremely vengeful Captain Phasma. But FN-2187 steps in and tells Sam that he can help with the ground strike. He knows all of the weaknesses within the First Order's machinery, and his participation in the assault could be critical to its success. Sam is convinced, and he rallies up a strike team consisting of Titan Squad, Black Squadron, and Neon Nub. Except, instead of using those ski speeders, which really wouldn't make that much sense on a crystal planet, Sam and his strike team are going to ride some really old speeder bikes that were manufactured back in the days of the Clone Wars, just to show how under-equipped the Resistance is in comparison to the First Order. Each speeder will carry 2 passengers, one person to drive the bike, and the other to fire RPGs at the underbellies of the walkers, per FN's instructions. Even though Titan Squad gives out some pretty helpful tips in exposing the weaknesses of the walkers, the Resistance doesn't possess enough firepower to properly exploit all of those weaknesses, and they only manage to bring down 2 of the 9 walkers, and the AT-ATs proceed to tear them to pieces. The speeder bikes are about ready to fall apart, and the walkers are raining hell down upon them. And just like in the original film, Sam will pull his fighters back once he realizes that there is no hope in reaching the battering ram cannon while the walkers are still in their way. They just don't have anything big enough to take down those walking war machines. So, Sam calls for a retreat, even when some of his pilots want to stay and fight. This act of concern for the soldiers under his command will be the final piece of Sam's character arc. When Sam first joined the Resistance, he was named a commander and given a squadron of troops to lead. Sam saw it all as an opportunity to acquire glory for himself, but his impulsiveness is what resulted in the deaths of many Resistance fighters. Then Sam tried to remedy that mistake by displacing Admiral Akbar from his lead in the Resistance, when in reality, that plan backfired because Akbar knew what he was doing the entire time. If Sam had just been humble enough to drop his ego, he would have made things a lot easier for himself and the Resistance. Failure has taught Sam the need for patience, wisdom, and understanding. Because of his failures, Sam is able to correct the way he leads his troops, and this newfound enlightenment can be seen when Sam prioritizes the lives of his men over victory when he calls the retreat back to base. FN 2187 will disregard Sam's call for retreat, and seeing no other way to achieve victory, he decides to drive headfirst towards the battering ram cannon, hoping to crash right into it and destroy it kamikaze style. But his speeder bike is knocked off course thanks to TZ-1719 sideswiping him. FN will protest against TZ saving his life, but she'll scold him in return for taking the easy way out. She tells FN that it would be dishonorable to sacrifice himself now when the First Order is still fully operational. If they truly want to redeem themselves in the eyes of the galaxy, they're going to have to earn it and fight for it the hard way. Only when the First Order is completely wiped out and they've restored peace to the galaxy can Titan Squad rest in their mission for redemption. FN nods in agreement, and Sam circles back around to pick up the 2 stormtroopers and drive them back to base. We cut to the First Order Star Destroyers orbiting above Christophsis. They've erected a small blockade over the planet. Luke's X-Wing exits out of lightspeed alongside the Millennium Falcon. Luke and Chewie link up their comms before diving headfirst into the enemy blockade. While Kira sits in the cockpit as Luke's co-pilot, she gets to witness firsthand how skilled of a pilot Luke really is. He outmaneuvers entire squadrons of TIE fighters, weaving in and out of enemy formations, soaring in between the Star Destroyer's cannons, and gracefully dodging all of the blaster fire that is rained down upon him. Chewie helps out by distracting some of the TIEs, but it doesn't make Luke's performance any less impressive. In a moment of comedy, we can see that some of the porks stowed away aboard the Falcon, and they're annoying Chewie as he's trying to fly. Luke punches a hole through the blockade, and he descends down to the planet's surface with the Falcon close behind him. Once the Resistance base comes into sight, Luke opens fire on the battering ram cannon and blows it up, saving the Resistance. Kylo Ren's shuttle suddenly appears in the sky as he joins the First Order assault team and hovers over the walkers. He assumes command of the walker platoon and briskly informs Phasma of Supreme Leader Snoke's death, blaming his murder on the Jedi. Luke's small X-Wing then disappears into the thick cluster of crystals behind the Resistance base. Inside the base, Sam and Resistance High Command are doing everything that they can to find another escape route when a hooded man suddenly appears in the base. Luke will pull back his hood and reveal himself, astonishing the Resistance fighters. The mere presence of the famous Jedi Master seems to lift their spirits. Luke will exchange a few words with his nephew before telling Sam to follow the Volptics, who know of a safe passage out of the base. Luke then walks outside the base's front door to confront Kylo Ren. The Resistance carries on with Luke's instructions, and they follow the Volptics to a dead end that's blocked by a huge pile of boulders. The Volptics squeeze right through the rocks and disappear, leaving the Resistance alone. They start to panic, but Sam is able to keep everyone calm as he orders everyone to help him start digging. Outside the back porch of the Resistance base, Kira walks up to the pile of rubble that's blocking the exit. The X-Wing and the Falcon are parked behind her, and both Chewie and R2 come up beside Kira as she approaches the blocked exit. She's cradling her burnt arm, and she's shuffling with an awkward limp to avoid stretching the second-degree burns on her back. Kira reaches out with the Force and tries to lift the boulders into the air. Only a few pebbles move, and that's it. Her face tightens as she tries even harder, and a few rocks actually start to float upwards. Kira suddenly feels a sharp pain in her arm and in her back. causing her to double over in agony, and the rocks clatter back down. Chewie helps keep Kira on her feet, and he holds her for a couple of seconds while she gets her breath back. Her face is pale, and she's completely drenched in sweat. She looks back up at the pile of boulders. Clearing the path seems like an impossible task. There's no way she can pull this off. We can see the doubt in her eyes. She tries lifting the rocks a second time, and fails yet again. Kira then closes her eyes, and grabs hold of the kyber crystal necklace around her neck. She reaches out once again, and begins chanting, "I'm one with the Force, and the Force is with me. I'm one with the Force, and the Force is with me. I'm one with the Force, and the Force is with me." The rocks begin to shift and float upwards. First one boulder, then two, then three, and then small chunks of debris begin levitating. Just like when she was in the cave with the Rancors back in the Episode 7 rewrite, Kira hears voices whispering to her through the Force, prompting her and guiding her.
What is this place?
A conduit through which the entire force...
Luminous beings, Zoe, not this fruit matter.
With their support, Kira is able to stand up straight and push through the pain. She lifts up both of her hands, and the entire mountain of rubble is cleared, revealing Sam and the Resistance fighters on the other side. The Resistance looks around at the hovering boulders in awe. They look at Kira, and it's almost like gazing upon a goddess. She's completely in tune with the Force, and there's nothing but pure serenity spread across her face as she calmly moves the boulders out of the way and secures salvation for the Resistance. Meanwhile, as all of this is taking place, the climax of the fourth act between Luke and Kylo will remain pretty much the same way that it is in the original film. It was always Snoke's destiny to be usurped by his students, just as it's mine to outgrow all of my teachers. You were wrong about me, Uncle. Neither of you know what I'm truly capable of, and now you can pay the price with your life. Everything about Luke's Force illusions will remain the same, except Luke isn't on Ahch-To like he was in the original film. He's actually hanging out by his X-Wing behind the Resistance base, meditating on the ground while Kira gets to work clearing the path. But Luke can't hold this illusion forever, and the effort greatly weakens him. He passes out, and the projection fades. Infuriated, Kylo Ren storms the base with General Hux and Captain Phasma, searching for his old master. We cut back to Kira, and we get the same exact reunion between Rey and Finn from the original version, but this time, it's Kira and Sam who are getting reunited. They both hug each other tightly, but Kira immediately winces and pulls back in pain. Sam quickly apologizes, and for the first time, realizes how badly Kira is hurt. With no other means of escape, Sam begins directing everyone to board the Millennium Falcon while he helps Kira get back to the X-Wing. While Chewie and Sam are busy carrying the unconscious Jedi back aboard the Falcon, R2 will be the one directing all of the traffic, and in his traditional feisty nature, he crams all of the Resistance fighters aboard the ship and doesn't do it none too gently either. C-3PO will look down at the rude little astromech. "Nice to see you too, R2." R2 will give a sarcastic beat back in response. "No, I don't mean that at all. You're a complete waste of parts." R2 will then drive into C-3PO and bump into his leg, completely knocking him over into the already irritated Resistance fighters, while R2 speeds away, giggling with mischief. Once they're all in orbit and away from danger, Chewie will chart a course for Ahch-To. Once everyone has settled in on the island thanks to the hospitality of the caretakers, Luke and Kira, who are still passed out from exhaustion, are taken to their huts by Sam and Chewbacca so that they can rest. It takes a couple of days for the Jedi to fully recover, and for the wounded Resistance soldiers to receive medical attention from Twi'lek Nur and the rest of the caretakers. Kira's injuries are completely healed thanks to Luke, but the burns have left some noticeable scars on her arm and back. Once the Jedi are back on their feet, a funeral service is held for Leia in the middle of the night. A shrine is built on the island in dedication to Leia, with the Resistance hosting a candlelight vigil for their fallen leader. Kira will hold Sam's hand throughout the ritual, while Luke, who is dressed in his black Jedi robes, will lead the Resistance in singing ancient Jedi hymns that are meant to help the souls of the dead transcend into the living Force. It will be a really somber but beautiful moment of adoration, not only for the heroes, but also for the audience, as they get to spend this time saying their final goodbye to both Princess Leia and Carrie Fisher. I want to include a scene where Kylo Ren is being anointed as the new Supreme Leader of the First Order, and I want to parallel it with the Midnight Vigil scene so that we can get this cool back and forth between the two factions honoring their respective leaders, Leia through a funeral and Kylo Ren through a coronation. All the while, Luke's Jedi hymn will be playing over the entire sequence. Kira will take a moment to pull Sam aside to a quiet spot where they can talk in private. She tells Sam the truth about her heritage and explains the whole affair to him. Sam is astounded to learn that Kira is his half-sister, but at the same time, he's not surprised to hear that his dad was responsible for Kira's conception. He takes the news pretty well, considering that he and Kira are already good friends. He even pulls up his shirt to show Kira the scars on his back from his exoskeleton, matching them up with the fresh scars on Kira's back. See? Looks like we're related after all. The good news is, I have a sister. The bad news is, you're related to my brother. This makes Kira smile. She's glad to be back with Sam after being separated from him for several weeks. Kira and Sam are then summoned by C-3PO back to Luke's hut, where the Resistance High Command are hosting a meeting with Luke. Chewbacca, R2-D2, C-3PO, DJ, and Titan Squad are also present during this council meeting. DJ explains the story of the Stormtrooper uprising to the Jedi, and he vouches for FN-2187's character. FN and the rest of Titan Squad then take it upon themselves to swear their loyalties to the Resistance cause. FN wants the chance to atone for the crimes he and his soldiers ignorantly committed against the galaxy. FN knows it will be hard to earn the trust of his former enemies, but he's willing to put in the work and help make things right. While everyone is still a little hesitant to accept Stormtroopers into their ranks, Luke is the first one to embrace it, and he walks up and shakes FN-2187's hand, welcoming him aboard. And just like how Poe Dameron gives 2187 the nickname Finn, Luke will do the same thing here. The members of Titan Squad look at each other with expressions of intrigue. It's strange, having a name. I don't even remember the name that I was born with. We've always just been identified by our designation numbers. Well, you're not numbers to us. You're people, just like everyone else. And you have a right to be free and to choose a name of your own. I think I'll stick with Finn. It has a nice touch. Thank you, Master Jedi. Once DJ and the rogue stormtroopers are dismissed, the matter of Admiral Akbar's succession is brought up. Now that Luke Skywalker is back in the game, everyone is turning to him to be their new leader. But instead, Luke explains to Resistance High Command that he spent some time speaking with various members of the Resistance, and they've all consistently spoken of Sam Solo's character and their admiration for his boldness, even if it is misguided at times. Luke encourages Sam to honor his mother's legacy by following in her footsteps and spearheading the campaign for peace and justice in the galaxy. When Luke brings up Sam's name, the Resistance High Command will reveal to everyone present that as one of his final commands, Admiral Akbar nominated Sam Solo as a potential candidate to be his successor, and left it up to Resistance High Command as to whether or not they would choose Sam to be the new general of the Resistance. There is some discussion amongst High Command, with some of them voicing Luke's nomination of his nephew as a conflict of interest. But ultimately, Resistance High Command collectively concurs to approve Akbar's nomination. Some of them agree on the decision because Sam is the only person in the Resistance who has received both Luke Skywalker and Admiral Akbar's blessings, while others agree to nominate Sam solely for propaganda purposes. The son of two legendary war heroes is an excellent candidate to become a symbol of hope in the galaxy. Along with the fact that the troops adore Sam, due to his natural ability to uplift their spirits and boost their morale. Sam is clearly nervous to accept such a heavy burden, but he understands that this is his chance to do right by Leia, and he takes it with an open heart. Luke mentions that due to Sam's inexperience with politics and warfare, he will serve as a war counselor and advisor to the new Resistance leader. Kira turns to her master and asks him what their next move is. Luke answers that he's been thinking a lot about the balance of the Force and what role the Jedi should play in the galaxy. After some consideration, Luke has decided to not resurrect the Jedi Order. Instead, he wants to try something new. He wants to build a brand new order, one that will not favor either the light or the dark, but maintain a healthy balance of both. This new organization will keep a neutral stance on the Force's spectrum, so that the Force will not feel the need to cull their numbers since they do not favor one side of the Force over the other. This new order will help keep the Force's scales level and prevent both the light and the dark side from gaining dominance over the galaxy. Both the Jedi and the Sith have attempted to suppress either side of the Force throughout history, and it has wrought nothing but pain and destruction. Both religions have died out now because of their short-sightedness, and now, Luke has decided to start up a new group of Force-sensitive individuals, a team that will combine the best teachings of both the Jedi and the Sith. Do you mean Grey Jedi? No, not Jedi. Paladins, holy knights and priests who will swear to uphold the same principles as the Jedi, but without the nearsightedness that allowed them to be destroyed by the Sith. They will usher in a new age of peace and prosperity. They will be Grey Paladins. Sam, Chewie, R2, and the members of Resistance High Command will look at the Paragon Jedi Master with expressions of hope and curiosity. The music swells up in a triumphant note, and we can see hope burning brightly in the eyes of each of the characters. And then we roll to credits. And that concludes the fourth and final chapter in my rewrite for Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. My goal with this rewrite was to try to remedy the controversy surrounding Episode 8 by providing an original rewrite that retained the same plot structure and themes of the original film, but at the same time portray the characters and the world of Star Wars in a way that was much more faithful to the traditional ethos and mythos of the franchise. If you guys think I succeeded in this goal, then go ahead and let me know in the comment section down below. If you guys like this rewrite series and you had a blast with it, go ahead and give me a like and even consider subscribing so that I can continue to put out this kind of content. Now, I know some of you guys have concerns with my decisions to run with the Grey Jedi idea and to make Kira the bastard daughter of Han Solo. So I want to take a moment to explain myself. I know in my Episode 7 rewrite, I said I wanted to maintain George Lucas's vision of having the grandchildren of Anakin and Padme be the main characters of the sequel trilogy. So even though Kira is half Solo, the vision remains intact because both Sam and Ben Solo are main characters, with Sam being the deuteragonist and Ben being the main antagonist, and they're direct descendants of Anakin and Padme. So I just wanted to clear the air on that front. Now the reason why I chose to take the sequel trilogy in this direction is because I think exploring the concept of Grey Jedi follows one of the unspoken rules about sequels that Episodes 7, 8, and 9 completely ignored. And that rule is, whenever you write a sequel, you always want to keep it familiar but fresh. Episodes 7, 8, and 9 never did any of that. The only familiarity you got in those films was cheap nostalgia.
Chewie, we're home.
There's very little ethos in those movies that resembles the trademark ethics of the franchise. The filmmakers weren't brave enough to try something new and breathe some fresh air into the franchise, and the ones who did have the spine to bring in some new content ended up misrepresenting what the character stood for and what the franchise stands for as a whole. George Lucas has always said that no matter what the story is about, as long as it's about family and it's hopeful, then you have a Star Wars movie. So that was the mentality I had going into this rewrite. For 7 movies, the Skywalker saga has portrayed the Jedi and the Sith as being the only groups of Force users within the galaxy. Which if you've watched any of the TV shows, read the comics, or played some of the games, you'll know that this isn't true. The Force is much, much bigger than just the Jedi and the Sith. And I think it's time to add some more depth to the world of Star Wars and what it represents. I really like the concept of the Grey Jedi because it adds some realism and some complexity to the otherwise simple black and white good versus evil representation of the Force. In the real world, there isn't just black and white. People are not all good and people are not all bad. Most of them are somewhere in between. They're in the gray. They're a mixture of decency and selfishness. And whenever we see that kind of realism in television, we automatically gravitate towards it because it's realistic. We can understand it. We can empathize with it. But most importantly, we can relate to it. Hell, Darth Vader is arguably the franchise's most popular character, and he turned out to be a Grey character himself. So, introducing the Grey Jedi would bring in some interesting changes to the rigid status quo of the Jedi versus Sith conflict. And it would shake up the spiritual struggle between the light and the dark side, since the Grey Jedi fall smack dab in the middle of that black and white spectrum. The moral complexity of the Grey Jedi will stir the pot, but in a healthy way. I want the inclusion of this new faction to be a breath of fresh air to the franchise, and to show that it isn't afraid to stretch its wings and explore new heights. I also wanted to let you guys know that I'm thinking about taking a break from my Transformers and Star Wars rewrites for a while, and focusing a little bit more on other rewrites from different franchises, so I don't burn myself out. I have a couple of videos and rewrites I've been meaning to make for a while now, and once I'm done working on those, I'll come back to publishing my regular Transformers and Star Wars videos. That's all I got for you guys today, so make sure that you leave a like and a comment down below, and I will catch you guys next time. May the Force be with you.